Such a fashion person. Where did that come from?
I don't know.
Yeah?
Not from my mother. She didn't pay much attention to clothes. My grandfather and his two brothers came out to Canada. They had been brought up as drapers. They had a department store at Cowes, Isle of Wight, called the Beehive. The boys heard about Canada being paved with gold, and they left the dad over and mother and my grandfather, and came out to Manitoba and got whatever land parcel, and they didn't know how to farm. An awful time there, but we put up with it.
How long did you put up with it?
Oh, about a year.
Yeah.
The boys had been over for a year, and then they sent for mother's mum and their mother. The father stayed in England.
Right.
And ran the store, and the boys all came out. And their mother and great-grandma and her mother were there a year, and they knew they weren't farmers. Grandfather. And they had a succession of bakeries, and I was asking Mum the other day, she told me that the native women would have their papooses, and they'd leave them in the bakery and go shop and come and pick them up. That was babysitting in them their days.
How did you earn a living?
Oh, stenography.
Yes.
Mum's aunt had a business school in Toronto.
Uh-huh.
And Mum's cousin, Betty Compton, her mum and her left Toronto, and she went to New York and became, well, she married Jimmy Walker, the mayor of New York.
Who did?
Betty Compton. And at the same time Betty was gaining fame in New York, Mum went into a beauty show in Winnipeg, and she became Miss Winnipeg. But she was a little young and couldn't go on the trip because they didn't have the, well, she had to be 18 and she was just 17.
When did you leave home?
When did I? Well, I was quite young. Well, we'll say 16.
Right. And where did you go?
So long ago.
Your father?
Well, my father had been a child protege, and he studied in New York, and my grandfather knew he was a violinist, and Mum played the piano, and my grandfather sang, and everybody Sunday evening around the piano. So he invited Pelham, my father, and made the match. My father had a store, and he used to come into the store on all sorts of pretenses just to see me.
When you met your husband, how did you know that he was the one?
Well, I just loved him from the beginning. Just naturally took to him. It was a long courtship. They didn't get married till Mum was 29.
Okay, Marjorie, why did you wait so long to marry him?
Well, I suppose it was
like money. We had to have either a house or an apartment, and that cost was a spender.
And he wouldn't save.
He was a great humorist, very funny, and he brought a lightness, I think, and a brightness. We enjoyed each other.
You brought humor and lightness.
Yes.
What did you bring?
Well, what shall I say? Soundness.
Where did God fit into all this?
Yes. I was very spiritual and attended the church, joined the church, and joined everything about church.
What were some of the things you did for church?
Taught Sunday school, and
You were a reader?
had wonderful health. I didn't need any healing. I just was well all the time.
Imagine someone who is just coming into their own, who is 16 or 17 now. What advice would you give them to have a happy life?
Be fair and honest, and express a lot of gratitude. Well, I always loved painting and sketching, anything to do with art. That's my interest. So take my paints and go out in the country with somebody else and paint what we saw.
Right.
I had lots of good friends. They were always ready to help.
This was for Mother's 100th birthday. All right, Thrifty's gives a free birthday cake when a child is 1 year old. So I took it upon myself to go into Thrifty's and say, how about when somebody becomes 100 years old? And sure enough, Thrifty's donated the cake, and at the party I gave them a plug.
What was the best advice she ever gave you?
Waste not, want not.
And did that stick with you? Yes.
And that was her mother's motto.
Right.
Well, after supper every evening and in the day, I telephone my mother, and at night we do the hymns, whatever Mum wants, usually O Gentle Presence and Shepherd Show Me. But I asked her to sing the hymn that her mother sang when she was a little girl. God sees the little sparrows fall, He meets their every need. If God so loved the little thing, I know He loves me too. He loves me too. He loves me too. I know He loves me too. If God so loves the little things, I know He loves me too. Well, I learned grace from my mum, and I guess her mum used it. Lord bless this meat
That we shall eat,
this
bread
bread
that we shall break. Make all our actions kind and sweet. We ask for
Jesus'
sake. Amen.